The year is 2025, and the United States has become a dystopian wasteland, divided between the haves and the have-nots. Medicine is only available to the upper class, and the lower classes are left to die in squalor. This clearly science fiction premise is the basis for the book The Running Man, published in 1982, originally under Stephen King's pseudonym Richard Bachman. Stephen King wanted to see if a rose by any other name really would smell as sweet, or in his case, if a book written under a different name would sell as well. In general, they didn't, until his cover was blown in 1985, and then the sales for the Richard Bachman books took off. A film adaptation of The Running Man was released in 1987, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, and a new adaptation is coming out this year, so I thought it would be fun to compare the book to the first movie. When I set out to do this, I didn't realize just how far the movie had strayed from its source material. So let me just say up front, the Schwarzenegger Running Man has about as much similarity to its book as a strawberry Jolly Rancher has to an actual strawberry. They are wildly different. The movie is a campy Schwarzenegger action flick, where the book is a tight suspense-filled drama. They have almost nothing to do with one another past the title. The adaptation was so far removed from the book that Stephen King wouldn't allow his name to be used in the publicity for the film, even though by then the connection was known between him and Bachman. Okay, so let's compare the book for The Running Man to the movie. Spoilers ahead. The Running Man begins with a sick child in the poorest part of town. The hero of the book, Ben Richards, hasn't been able to get a job in years, and he leaves his wife and sick daughter to go try to get onto one of the popular reality TV shows that offers the chance of winning fantastic wealth if they pit themselves against the possibility of death. Richards has run out of options. His daughter is very sick, and they were barely surviving on his wife prostituting herself. Richards takes the devil's bargain and joins the line to qualify for one of the shows. The line for volunteers stretches 10 blocks from the network building. It is the last chance for most of these people. Richards goes through a battery of tests, both physical and mental, and at each stage he is winnowed down into a smaller pool of applicants until they tell him that he will be a contestant on their biggest show, The Running Man. The Running Man releases its contestant out into the world, and the goal is to evade capture by the show's professional hunters. Out in the world, they earn $100 for each hour that they evade capture, and if they last 30 days, they win a fortune. The contestant has to send in 2 film cartridges per day in the mail, which also serves to track their location. And crucially, anyone who finds them and turns them in is eligible for a reward, which is huge if it's the tip that leads to their capture and kill. Ben Richards is introduced to the audience as a menace, a deviant who would kill them all if he could. The audience is told that he's a madman, and then Richards is released onto the street with a 12-hour head start and $4,800 as an advance on his hourly winnings. Richards buys fake IDs and a costume from a contact in his slum, and then he takes a plane to New York. He spends 2 days in a hotel before realizing he can't stay and moves on to Boston on a bus. There, he takes up a room in a decrepit YMCA until he realizes that he's been tracked there, when he sees agents taking up positions outside the building. He runs down to the basement, where he finds a storm drain. As the cops come to get him, he ignites bales of newspaper on fire, which ignite the building's oil tank, and he escapes down the storm drain into the sewers as the building blows up around him. Richards comes up again in a poor part of town, and is taken in and hidden by a poor black family who also has a very sick child, who is racked with cancer. He gives them some money for medicine, and the oldest boy helps Richards escape, taking him out of town in the trunk of a car. The boy leaves Richards in a small town with another car and the costume of a nearsighted priest. Richards stays there nearly a week before sensing that they are closing in on him again, and he leaves town in the car that was left for him. He goes to the house of a contact that the boy had left for him, and is met there by an old woman who recognizes him from TV and wants nothing to do with him. Her son gets home from work, but by then the old woman has called the police, and Richards has to run. The police chase him, and he's shot and breaks his ankle, but manages to evade capture with the help of the son, who dies in the process. Richards hobbles out of the forest where the son had left him, and forces a woman to pull over on a highway, where he climbs in and takes her as a hostage. He has her drive them to an airport, and when the police and the hunters stop him, he bluffs and tells them that he is holding a bunch of explosives, enough to blow up everything in the vicinity. They don't know if he's bluffing, so they agree to his demands and get him a plane fueled up on the runway. Richards gets on the plane with the hostage and is joined by the chief hunter. They all take off, and while they're on the plane, the head of the network offers Richard a job as their new chief hunter. He's the first contestant to make it this far, and he's lasted longer than any other. Then they make the mistake of telling him that his wife and daughter are dead, killed in their apartment in the projects, but not by the network. Knowing that he has nothing left to lose, Richard starts a fight on the plane and takes out both the pilots. He kills the chief hunter but gets shot again badly. Richards then shoves his captive out the door of the plane with the last parachute. And then, knowing he's dying, he steers the plane right into the network building. And that's the end of the book. Richards 9/11's into the building. No, I didn't see the end coming, and it was quite the bummer. I don't think anyone who was alive on 9/11 can read this and not get very depressed. But you pull out of it eventually. Thoughts about the book? This was the most compulsively readable book I've come across in a long time. I read it in a day. I couldn't stop. I had to know what was going to happen next. I heard that Stephen King wrote this in a week, and I can completely see that. It's not polished, but it reads fast, and it's thrilling. Probably a bit like how it was written. This isn't literature, it's a bit too rough for that. The characters are pretty basic, and the writing is mostly just okay. It had some really good lines, usually descriptions of things. The occasional line would be so good I marked it to remember later. And the premise just can't be beat. It's so delicious they're probably going to still be mining this idea 100 years from now. I found myself playing out in my head how I would avoid capture in The Running Man. The influence of this book on the Hunger Games was also completely obvious. I'm going to say something crazy here and state that the Hunger Games did it better. Katniss is a character. She's this phenomenal protagonist, where Ben Richards is kind of a blank. And the Hunger Games universe has the polish that comes from working an idea for a long, long time. But there's no debating that The Running Man was the template for the Hunger Games. I can't say that The Running Man was a great book or that I'd recommend it. It was a compulsive read, but it also left me kind of empty at the end. There are some really good lines, but not enough to recommend it. The premise is amazing, but the execution is just okay. Usually the book wins in the showdown, but this time I actually thought the movie might have a chance. That is, until I actually watched the movie. There is a different scale that we use for 80s Arnold Schwarzenegger films. I'm usually up for an 80s Schwarzenegger movie. I genuinely love the movie Commando. It's a ridiculous movie with a lot of guns. It's big and dumb and fun. There are better Schwarzenegger movies, like Terminator and Total Recall, and then there's The Running Man. Here, Arnold is a helicopter pilot who is ordered to fire on a protest full of civilians, and he refuses to do it. The other officers take over and knock him out, and then the army uses Richards as the fall guy to take the blame for attacking the protesters. He's sent to a work prison where he's outfitted with an exploding collar. He escapes and goes to his brother's apartment, but a new woman lives there now. Richards takes her hostage and tries to use her to escape to Hawaii, but he's caught in the airport when she calls out to the police. The footage of his escape catches the eye of a producer who sees him as the perfect new contestant to join their gladiatorial TV show, The Running Man. This show puts criminals into the arena with fighters and gives them the chance to win a fair trial. Arnold is put into the arena along with the guys he helped escape prison and the girl he took hostage, and faces off against his challengers. Round 1 has him fight a man in a hockey uniform with exploding pucks and a razor-edged hockey stick. Round 2 has a light-up opera singer who shoots lightning bolts. And round 3 has a flamethrower. Arnold kills each one, finishing them off with a quippy one-liner. The show has never had an opponent kill one of their fighters before, so they trap Arnold and broadcast a doctored video of him fighting their round 4 fighter, Jesse Ventura, with Ventura killing Arnold. This is what the world sees. However, meanwhile, the Resistance has freed Arnold and the girl he has taken hostage earlier. Together, the Resistance takes over the broadcast feed and shows the original undoctored footage of Arnold refusing to shoot down the protesters. The resistance takes over the network, and that's it. That's the happy ending. Arnold kisses the girl, and the revolution has begun. Or something. Going to this movie after reading the book is a little rough. In the one, you have a desperate populace volunteering for almost certain death in the hopes of winning enough money to survive. In the other, you have a hockey player shooting exploding hockey pucks. The book is a smart survival story, a manhunt turned into a TV show, where the movie is a cartoony wrestling match. Time will tell whether this is the more realistic scenario, but it was a definite step down coming from the book. It's not a great movie, and yet it kind of works. The smarmy TV host played by Richard Dawson is great. He was the actual host of Family Feud, and he plays a dark take on the same role. The writing is occasionally good, and cheesy as the arena battles are, they are the classic cheese of Hollywood. And Schwarzenegger is game. He carries this movie on his big shoulders. Also, you get to watch two future governors wrestle. Schwarzenegger would later become governor of California, and Jesse Ventura was the governor of Minnesota. If you want to see what Americans look for in its leaders, I guess this is it. It's The Running Man. So for book versus movie, I'm comparing an okay book to a not great movie and trying to decide which one is slightly better. I think the book cast a longer shadow, with its premise used in the Hunger Games and elsewhere. So I think the book wins. It is a compulsive read, and it has some great lines. But if you want classic 80s cheese, try the original movie. Side notes. I was somewhat surprised that the film of The Running Man differed so much from the book. The book seemed like it was ready-made for a movie, just add water. It seemed so prepackaged and ready to go, I naively thought the movie would just take the film as its screenplay and carry on. While the original film may not have, judging by the trailer for the new adaptation, it looks like the new one does exactly that. Even from the trailer, I can tell that this new adaptation is faithful to the book. It shows Ben escaping down a storm drain and evading capture at a crummy hotel. The wife and the child are there, and I'm guessing this new one won't be pulling any punches with the poverty and desperation. It'll be cool to see a film based on the actual book this time, and I have a suspicion that this movie will be really good. It has good actors, and a good director, and a good writer. I'm really looking forward to seeing the new version. Richard Bachman is having a good year in the theater. An adaptation of his book The Long Walk came out a month before the new adaptation of The Running Man. I went to go see this, since it felt like the companion piece to The Running Man. It's about another fictional contest where 50 boys compete to walk non-stop. If they drop below 3 miles an hour, they get a warning. 3 warnings and they're shot. The last boy alive wins. This movie was absolutely engrossing. I was pulled deep into this film. I think it might be the best movie I've seen this year. I really didn't expect to like it. I'd wondered how a movie about a bunch of boys walking could be good, but it's honestly great. And it feels like the sibling film to The Running Man. It's a similar premise, survive a deadly game for fabulous wealth, but the game proves to be both terrible and transformative. The Long Walk also felt a bit like the show Squid Game, if you saw that on Netflix. I highly recommend the film if you see it somewhere. Okay, that's it for me today. Thanks for listening. This is Rose with Rose-Colored Movies. So how would you do it? How would you evade capture in The Running Man? Let me know in the comments.